But we do have what is considered, I think this is it, Zach. Now Marvel is dying. Now is the fatigue that is on the horizon. When it comes to the newest Marvel movie, I don't remember how you felt about the first one, because I couldn't even remember what I felt about the first one. I had to go back and see my old LME video on Captain Marvel, the movie that was sandwiched in between Infinity War, I think it was also Ant-Man, but right before Endgame, literally a month before the biggest movie of all time comes out, they're like, oh, by the way, this is the biggest superhero out there, and she's going to be the one who helps fight Thanos. That movie, the first one, made $1 billion at the box office.
Billy.
People were torn by it. She had an iconic press run that went along with that. You and I, however, are really big fans of Brie Larson, I would say.
Yeah. Date back to Short Term 12 and especially Room. Of course, that Oscar to win. Yeah.
That when it comes to Short Term 12, you got a dude who directed Short Term 12, something we covered on Intercut when we were covering Shang-Chi. He's going to be doing the Kang Dynasty. He's worked with her in Just Mercy, Short Term 12. So there's a lot brewing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when it comes to a director who's already had that one-on-one relationship with Brie Larson. I also was hearing that they had to come to this guy the entire time when they were filming to get any notes and everything else. So Dustin's got, he's got it in the bag when it comes to it. This movie...
Because he's tapped to do the next Avengers movie, right? Like, he's the next Russos or whatever.
He's the one taking over. Does this movie get you excited for that in any way, shape, or form?
Not really at all. I didn't have a terrible time with this movie. And in fact, I thought the first Captain Marvel movie was okay, but definitely not memorable in any way. I think this is an improvement on it in some ways, largely because of how charismatic the cast is. Most notably, Iman Vellani in the role of Kamala Khan just really pops off the screen. There's just something really contagious about her enthusiasm throughout the film. I thought her, especially opposite Brie and opposite Tuna Paris, made for a pretty fun time. The thing with these Marvel movies is that I think you kind of get them in two different flavors. You either get really pretentious and mournful and self-serious and elongated, or you get kind of brisk and breezy and maybe a little bit underwritten. And the best ones are the ones that are probably well done and packed with stuff. But I would take a breezy time with a Marvel movie any day of the week over something that is reaching for gravity and depth that it simply is not capable of. So for me, I think this is actually maybe my third favorite Marvel film since Endgame.
Since Endgame? Well, that's the thing, right? Because we're always saying there's Endgame, and then there's another movie that comes out and it's the worst of the worst, and then another movie comes out and we forget oh yeah, this was actually pretty good, and the next one comes out and we're they haven't had a good movie at all. This is the worst thing. It's over. But the last one would have been Guardians. Right. I really like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. What else did we have?
Multiverse of Madness is the other one that I would put up in that tier. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a teeter-totter between the two of them. I do agree with you. I think you and I can go into a movie and realize what the movie is trying to be.
Right.
And then obviously put aside the expectations of what's to come when it's the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm happy that we finally have someone who actually cared to be there. I agree with you. Kamala being in the movie felt like the first time that I went to see one of these movies and someone cared to be there on screen. I felt like I haven't had fans at these movies who also cared. I felt like we were all there to do homework week after week. Her enthusiasm oozed off the screen. When it came to Carol, I think that they changed her character a lot to have a completely different attitude than what they had in the first movie, because I went back to rewatch that first movie, and I think it's a lot more confusing than people anticipated it to be, because I know people have their vendettas against the movie, how it built up, whatever. That is a movie about the U.S. Air Force. It's a damn near ad for that. And then there's also a movie about refugees, and I think the directors and what Kevin Feige were going for were two completely opposite different things, and that's why the movie's such a mess. This movie is then trying to fix that, but it half-assed the script. This is considered to be the shortest Marvel movie, which I don't know if you felt that. I think this even includes the after credits. She is the youngest director, and it is only an hour 45, which I think beats the hour 52 from a couple of the other outings that they've had.
I mean, it definitely beats the 2.5 hours that it felt like I was watching Quantumanium for.
Quantumania is still going on in the background, but
Yeah.
I think that this is a movie where they chopped it a lot. You know, we covered the Variety article last week and how there was a lot of baggage that came out in terms of the studio test screening this for the first time with a public audience, which had never been done in the past. The idea that they kind of threw the director under the bus, saying that she moved on to the next project, not realizing, you know, with COVID and everything, it got delayed a year and a half. She had to go work on something else. And I think you kind of see that in the editing. I think you see that in the story because you have a villain here who is kind of using Captain Marvel, our main one, Carol, as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then you never really feel that. Like, there are moments where Kamala is so happy to meet her hero, and then she kind of looks at her like, wait, are you the hero that I thought you could be? And, like, I don't want to do the work for a movie that has those inklings there, but that's not what they delivered because they wanted to stop at a planet where they were singing like dance theater kids, bro. I don't know what this movie was doing at some points, and it got a little annoying.
Yeah, it picks up plot threads and ideas and then puts them down just like without any kind of ceremony to it. I think it's so anticlimactic with the way it will suddenly shift into a new phase of its story or move into a new planet or something like that. You mentioned they show up at this planet where everybody sings. They don't communicate with dialogue. They have to sing to communicate. But then as soon as that stops being convenient for them, they're like, oh, wait, no, but this guy actually talks. You know, they don't they don't like develop a lot, and it really does feel like it's most notable when it comes to the villain, because I thought like Zawe Ashton was like fine in this role, and there's an interesting idea there with Captain Marvel as this figure who, while she's a hero to so many, she's the person who brought all these awful things to her planet. They could have made something there, but either it's all left on the editing room floor or they never developed it in the first place. Like, she gets so short shafted for screen time, for character development. She's kind of just there.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, this is a perspective that would have been really interesting, but do you think they were scared that if they made Captain Marvel the villain after, again, that press run from the first movie, they'd be like, no, people are going to dive too much into this? I think that would have been cool. That's an interesting thing to see your hero, Kamala looking at her and being very disappointed on how she handled things. It also ties in with why she wasn't there for Monica. I don't know. I feel like there's just remnants of a decent-ish story here. But again, you're combining two Marvel series on streaming, the follow-up to what's supposed to be the biggest Avenger who's taken over for Cap, and then you're stuffing it in the shortest movie that they've released. I don't know.
I will also say,
go ahead.
I just wanted to say, did you feel like everybody's making a whole big deal of like, oh, you have to watch 2 shows and movie to get into this? I didn't watch Miss Marvel, and I felt perfectly fine. Like, it's not like the lore matters that much.
Also, don't they give you a previously on? They damn near just flash back in 10 seconds.
She wears like she wears like a flashback machine in order to go back through her memories for all the people who weren't there for the first movie.
And they just scrub it. Now, I got 2 questions for you on that one. One,
shoot.
How do you feel that this like 6 episodes, 10 episodes, and you can get everything in 10 seconds?
I mean, that sounds like a Kevin Feige problem to me. Maybe they should rethink how they approach these shows if they can be summarized so quickly.
That's pretty bad. But 2, dude, can you break down how that even works when somebody else worked on a project and then you're taking their entire movie series and then putting it in theaters, but you were for streaming? How does that even work with royalties? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that gets into a whole other area that I don't think the writer's strike even is ready to touch. Right? Like archival footage. I mean, maybe the answer is that like we have to look to what Nia DaCosta said, and the real author of all these movies is not their directors, but Kevin Feige.
That's bad, bro. Because that was what I was thinking. The moment they hit us with a 3rd one, I'm like, oh, I really did not need to recap a single thing. All. They just got it up there. Zach, can you explain to me what the premise of the movie is when it comes to their shifting powers, in layman's terms?
They sometimes, when they do things, they switch places, but also sometimes they don't, and it doesn't really ever get fully like rationalized, or because I think it's actually an interesting bit, the whole switching places, and there's moments in that first fight scene that feel kind of surprising and dynamic. And then they kind of just don't do anything with it. Then they're like, all right, we figured it out, kind of.
I did like the training montage. They're like,
Yeah.
building up as a team, and they realize like, if we are going to be swapping, we just got to figure it out. They figured it
The
out
jump
before the
rope
writers
and
because,
stuff.
yeah, like you said, it's when their powers are used, but maybe sometimes every other time their powers are used.
I mean, part of the problem with that is also that like these are three heroes whose powers are like so hard to define anyway, right? Like it's not Iron Man who has a big iron suit or Spider-Man who can shoot webs. It's they just shoot beams of light or something, and one of them can be invisible sometimes.
Yeah, they're light-o-majigs. Look, overall, I'm happy she was in the movie because she added a lot of levity to it. I know some people have been saying they don't like her pushback. It reminds me a lot of when Spider-Man was very excited to meet Tony Stark, and he kept that up for like 3 movies until he vanished into dust. I like the energy she brought into it. There were a couple of after credits. One I thought was interesting because Alina swore that was an after credit. So I was like, no, honey, that was the ending of the movie. She's like, no, that was an after credit. I'm like, no, I think they knew not to make it an after credit because people were going to leave. The first one has her. Without getting into too much spoilers, did you like that? Do you like what it alludes to?
The first after credits scene, I mean, to me, it's backwards looking in a way that I don't know if it appeals to me, right? There are people for whom that's a really exciting moment, but I'm not mining through the Marvel lore like that, right?
She is quoting. We're talking about the one where Kamala goes to visit somebody, right?
That's pre-credits, right? I thought you meant
that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel like that's an after credit scene that they made the ending of the movie.
Yeah, it's an after credits that they just turned into an ending. You're right.
Yeah, they're like because we don't think people are going to stay throughout. She is quoting things in there from an old Avengers movie that doesn't exist in this universe. So how would she be quoting a Marvel movie?
They kind of ride a really weird line with her fandom anyway, in that like she kind of feels like she exists in our world, but she is in theirs. I don't know.
But yeah, that second one, you didn't like it?
I mean, it's fine. I'm just not like excited by it the way that a lot of people get excited for. Okay, now these characters are gonna have it. I mean, like show me a movie that looks like it's an actually completed movie and not something that has been chopped down to an hour 45 in post.
The character that pops out, as excited as I was to see them, I hate that they now did this character with like full CGI.
It just looks uncanny. Yeah,
it looked terrible. It looked like I was watching a cam recording while I was already in the theater watching it on the big screen. But now I understand why the homie got a second reboot to his show though. Now I understand it. I'm really excited for what that after credits has because I've been waiting for a versus in the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever since I covered this in the A to Z show. It has been one of my most anticipated things, and the Kamala series kind of hints at it. We kind of had hints of it in the Doctor Strange movie, but when we discussed this in our variety breakdown about like all the stuff that's happening with Marvel, we had mentioned like you think it's getting worse. And to me, it's like, I just think it's at a lull. I feel like he's coasting on all of these mid type of movies because he knows that the moment he comes in with the Fantastic Four, the moment he comes in with the X-Men, the moment he comes in with whatever the Secret Invasion thing is really, the Secret Wars thing is really going to be, he's going to be like, yeah, of course you are all going to come back. He's almost like using the fan base that he can make any of these movies, no matter how good they are, because eventually the good story will come in. He's just waiting for that.
So you're not so worried about the state of Marvel because the box office returns were not so pleasant for the latest film.
It's abysmal.
The latest superhero movie. It's even lower than what people were panicking about for The Flash, making only $47 million this weekend off of an over $200 million budget.
Damn.
I mean, obviously, like, it's still more money than, like, Killers of the Flower Moon made at the box office, but we're talking Marvel. We're talking the most recognizable cinematic franchise out there, one that has not dipped this low ever. One,
you don't think that they, like, barred it a little bit? I'm trying to collect clips for the LME. They have, like, one scene out. That never happens. Mm-hmm. I thought the trailers were terrible. I didn't think they pushed this marketing out there the way that they could have. And they spent all of the rest of the promotion on the Las Vegas Sphere. For what?
Yeah, I guess that's part of the struggle when there's an actor strike going on and you can't have Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, and Mani Vellani out there, promoting your movie. But at the same time, I can't imagine that them doing, a wired autocomplete is going to make this movie that much more money.
Considering that her last wired autocomplete created memes that were used against her, probably not. It's kind of like Trolls. All we kept thinking of the moment that the strike was over, it was Trolls and Universal going like, please, 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 we can't have Justin Timberlake out there. So they're probably the ones who are the most distraught from this. I think at least having Miss Marvel out there would have helped it. You would have been able to see her excitement. I think that would have gotten at least more of a younger crowd there. Look, I know that there's a pushback with these movies getting very expensive, and I don't believe they should be expensive. We had brought this up when you had mentioned how the Blade movie was going to get its like budget cut down, and we're like, sure, but why is that the movie that's going to get its budget cut down?
Yeah.
47 mil for any other movie is really good. But like you said, for Marvel movies, they have a standard, and I'm not worried about it because they've had lowers before. This is just the lowest. All that shows to me is that eventually there will be a higher one. This could be the lowest that they have, but eventually something is going to top Endgame.
That's a good segue into my next question, because over the week I put a question on the Intercut Twitter, and I was curious whether or not people think that Marvel will cross a specific milestone, because the 4 highest grossing Marvel movies, that is the first Avengers film, No Way Home, Infinity War, and Endgame, all made over 1.5 billion globally. Art, do you think that another MCU movie will pass 1.5 at the global box office in the next 5 years? Because we're close to 50-50.
Come
you think
on,
so,
bro? Yeah. What do you mean? You said Avengers, and then Spider-Man: No Way Home, Infinity War, Endgame. Those have about 5 years in between them.
Yeah.
We have Fantastic Four.
You think Fantastic Four is the next one that is a true threat for that? Because keep in mind, even Black Panther didn't cross 1.5.
Which one?
Black Panther?
1 or 2?
Both. Neither.
Oh, you're saying... Oh, wait. Damn, you're telling me that the billion mark is not the billion mark anymore? It's 1.5? This inflation is getting crazy, Zach.
I'm just asking. Somebody's got to ask the questions.
Oh, okay, 1.5. Damn, that's bogus. Okay, I do think it's going to cross a bill.
Yeah, because they've also struggled to cross a bill recently. Even Multiverse of Madness didn't get there.
Multiverse didn't? I thought it did.
I don't think it did.
Okay, but I also believe that a big part of Multiverse was the fact that they had a cameo that is Fantastic Four adjacent. So if it was riding off of that, and you and I kept our eyes on that, like we were waiting to use that for anything, and they never released a clip of that, man. I think there's a lot riding on Fantastic Four. I think the discussions that we had about Doctor Doom being a possible pivot, I think they'll get there eventually. They got to finish up the Kang stuff. I do think that Doctor Doom villain will get people in seats, dude. And then also, I think once you start bringing in the X-Men more and more, that's going to be massive. You don't have faith in a Deadpool? Deadpool 3? Wolverine?
I don't know if I have faith to get it that high, although like it's certainly going to threaten it. The weird thing is, though, even though I voted no personally to that first question, I put up a second question about the $2 billion mark, because only Infinity War and Endgame have both crossed that $2 billion mark. The only other movies in existence to cross that are Avatar 1 and 2, Titanic, and The Force Awakens. So I asked people whether or not they think a Marvel movie will cross that mark again in the next 10 years. Weirdly, I have more confidence in that. Like, I think that at some point they will build the excitement and the momentum up again for some huge team up. I don't know if that's going to happen in the next 5 years, given all of the like deck shuffling that they're going to have to do. Given the lack of interest in the current leaders of their MCU.
And Young Avengers, you're not excited for?
I don't know if like this cast of the Avengers is going to get there, but like the Avengers plus the X-Men plus the Fantastic Four, that kind of movie that they will probably need more than 5 years to put together, I think that could be huge. I
want Iron Man Tom Cruise to come in a real suit, like we've been saying, and I think that's when we'll cross the $1 billion.
For sure.
Do you recommend people leave the house for this? Should they stay at home?
I mean, I think you can stay at home for it. I don't
Disney
think it's
Plus
like... Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it decently, but I also didn't feel like particularly motivated to like talk about how much I loved it, or like I can't really remember a whole lot about it other than Sam Jackson going, "Oh, cool, it's Carol." Like that was funny, but a lot of flirkins and a lot of just
much
like
flirting.
try hardness to it. I really didn't have a bad time with it. I just don't think it's something that you have to rush out and see, especially when you can just watch Kamala Khan on Disney Plus anyway.
Agreed.